how closely do you think college projection and top player in the state will be related this year and with this class?
Um, I think a good bit. Like, I mean, I think this is a class where, like, I think, like, we're talking just in terms of rankings compared to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
like, yeah, because I think at this point, I think it's going to be one of Darian or Jet that ends up as the number one player in the state. I think I would feel, and it's not. I do believe in Jet, but I think we all kind of can recognize that it's going to be like a couple years before he's on the field at the next level. And so for that reason, I think if Darian finishes number one, like I feel pretty comfortable about Darian being able to contribute pretty early in his career and have a pretty productive college career. Yeah, I mean, I think this year just because of who it is at the top, and I still think that's a bit of a battle. Yeah, I would agree, and I'm those two names you mentioned before we hopped on, like. Yeah, I think those two guys. I mean, I think Bryson obviously over there at Westside too. Like, I mean, I think there's an opportunity for a lot of these guys to really outplay their ranking at the next level.
mm.
Mm. Tim, how I guess I'm curious. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. How much do you like to evaluate some of these guys that are in state but aren't Nebraska targets necessarily? Because there's a lot of them this year, right? Where I mean, 6 of the top 10, depending on what services you look at and who you ask, are going to Iowa State, and you got a bunch of guys that Nebraska just wasn't ever really in on, or maybe never even offered outside of like Darian, which obviously they were trying for. Like, how much do you lock in and evaluate on guys that are local here but don't really have the interest from Nebraska or nationally?
I check in. I mean, I try to do my due diligence with the in-state talent and make sure I've not missed anybody because you never know, you know. I mean, just and it's not even from that sense. Like one from a doing my job perspective, it's good to have an eye on as many potential D1 caliber players as you can because down the line that's a guy that could potentially transfer back into the program even if Nebraska isn't interested the first time around. But just in general, I do like to kind of keep an eye out on guys and um, beyond like in what the job maybe requires sometimes to like help out if I can. I mean, as part of this job, I've had the opportunity to kind of build some of these relationships with coaching staffs and support personnel. So it's like, hey, if I can help someone find a home and their recruitment isn't taking off, I'll do what I can. I'll send some text. But the tough thing with Nebraska is like again, I have some like contacts in Texas and close to the southeast where it's like, yeah, they're always looking for talent and there's never enough talent to like properly, for what they're looking for, but they're also regionally based. A lot of these smaller programs in Texas don't really like to go outside of the state lines or outside of neighboring states. And so it's like, hey, there's a kid in Nebraska that I think of. I mean, I've tried like he's got a home now, but I mean Eli Johnson. I've tried to find him like a home because I think he there's
Hey,
an opportunity for
he's
him.
really good.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for him. He's a good football player. I think there should be a spot for him. I'm glad he's found a home now. But yeah, try to kind of get him like in some schools down in Texas specifically. And it's just one of those things where a lot of the schools are like, hey, we don't really recruit outside of our state borders, but if the kid's interested, I mean, we'll take a look. So that's kind of the way I personally see it. This year and next cycle are pretty unique because yeah, I mean, in this cycle Nebraska's taking one in state. Next cycle it may be two, maybe three, but like there's more than that, and there's more D1 talent than that in the state. So it's like those guys can't be ignored.
Hey, so what do you think? Let's go across the country for these senior years. We saw Junior last night in terms of Raiola and the respective talent around, but for guys that are in the Nebraska fold, the Jamal Rules of the world, the Noyles, the Larry Miles. What's for these guys in this next upcoming class? Is there ground to gain? Is there what's the sentiment as we're watching some of these senior years unfold for these guys in terms of them already being in the fold for Nebraska?
I think because of accelerated recruitments and where this the status quo kind of is right now, like most everyone commits before their senior year now and is done and all of that. So people kind of dismiss the senior year. I mean, again, we have so many reclassifications and things like that. Like, is how important is it remains one of the most important evaluation points for the evaluators here at Rivals and at 24/7 and everywhere. Like it's a really important evaluation piece, because this for a lot of guys is year 2 on varsity or year 3 on varsity, or like full, like this is supposed to be the culmination of things. Like at the college level, it's like junior senior year, you expect a player after years of developing to take that step. It's the same thing at the high school level. And so there's a lot. I mean, for some guys, like you mentioned a couple guys in there that are pretty polished, and you're really just looking for more consistency on tape senior year. Leon Noel, Jamal Rule, Larry Miles. So for Miles, for example, there isn't a whole lot he has left to prove. He had 1,200 receiving yards last year, dominated the 7-on-7 circuit this offseason. Like, the big thing for him is he's stepping into a wide receiver 1 job. Last year, he was wide receiver 2 behind Vernell Brown, who's now at Florida, expected to contribute and catch passes from DJ Lagway year 1. Now he's stepping into that QB1 role. I mean, that wide receiver 1 role, catching passes from Garyon Coleman, who's headed to Miami. Those two guys want to win a state championship. So that's his senior season goal. I think similar things for Jamal Rule, who I like everything I've seen on tape. Obviously, he's made some physical strides this offseason. I want to see more from him out of the backfield. I think he had just around 12 catches and around 130 receiving yards as a junior. I want to see more of that. In Dana Holgerson's offense, you want to see the seniors contribute more. You want to see them or you want to see, in Dana Holger's offense, you want running backs to obviously catch the ball and pass protect. We haven't seen enough from that from Jamal, so I'm looking for that on tape from him. So there's guys that are more polished that you're looking for more improvement. And then there's guys like, I just put up a story on this, but there's guys like Claude Mpouma, who's in his second year playing football, not just, just second year playing football. And I just had a conversation with Cody Belair, our one of our scouts here at Rivals. He thinks he can be a top 50 player with, a significant step forward as a senior. And that's very possible. He's at Mont Carmel now, a program known for developing and he needs, kind of some work specifically in his pass sets. And so we're looking for more consistency there. I know, talking to evaluators, they want to see more aggression from him. That's something he lacks. He's got all the athleticism, all the size you're looking for in a, kind of D1 or Power 4 offensive tackle prospect. You just want to see more consistency from his technique. You want to see better technique, and you want to see more aggression on tape. He kind of lacks at this point. It's kind of just winning off athleticism and size than kind of wanting the desire to finish blocks or kind of having that mean streak to him. So we want to see a little more from that from him this senior year. There's a couple guys like that in Nebraska's class where, there is a lot more to prove as a senior year. I think Mpuma's one. Hayden Ainsworth, having reclassified, is another one.
How about Waterman? He's an interesting prospect on tape.
Yeah, he's the Waterman, and I wrote it today. I think he's one of the per the consensus rankings, he's the lowest ranked member of the class. But I think he's got one of the highest floors in the class. I think he's a very safe.
I agree.
Yeah, very, very safe prospect that can play all 5 positions across the line. He's trained at all 5 positions, can work on both sides of the line. You look at the build, he's like 6'5", near 300 or on the north end of 300 now, but relatively lean for that size. So there's still an opportunity to continue adding weight. Pretty athletic, really athletic prospect in general. Very safe prospect. Again, I don't know what there is for him to prove as a senior for me beyond I want to see, just little changes to his technique. How where is his hands at? The thing for me with offensive linemen at Nebraska specifically, like, I'm always looking for technical improvement from offensive line prospects. The thing with Nebraska is because Donovan Raiola teaches it so differently. It's like, hey, okay, yeah, I want to see improvement this year, but I know this is all going to get broken down and built back up year 1 at Nebraska. So it's like, obviously we want to see gains, but there's a point at it for me where I'm like, okay, yeah, but I already know what Rex Waterman can do, and I know he's going to have to break down the technique and relearn it Donovan Raiola's way. So, like, I that's one for me. What am I really looking for? So he's one I'm really intrigued to see what his senior year looks like, because like I do just want to see what growth looks like for him from junior year to senior year, because at this point I don't know what that would look like.
Tim, that's a really interesting one. As you're talking about a high floor guy, I do wonder sometimes when we're looking at these rankings, you talked about, positional versatility there. He's got good size with a frame to put on some more size. You talked about pretty good athlete. So I know you don't personally make the rankings, but as you kind of talk to some of your evaluators and things like that, what keeps a Rex Waterman who has this really, really good base, this high floor, and seemingly some areas to improve with weight and athleticism as well? Like, what keeps him from being a more highly regarded prospect?
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete, but not a great athlete. He's like a high floor, very sound, like guy that most places kind of project as like a guy that's probably going to start some seasons at the college level. But there's a question on the upside beyond that. I think that's the big question here. Guard is a position right now that I think evaluators at times can struggle with, just because sometimes it can be too easy, and sometimes it can be on the other side of it. It's like, hey, you have this athletic freak and you want to move him inside or whatever, there's so many different questions at the position right now. With Waterman specifically, I think long term, there's an upside question just from the athletic standpoint. He's a good athlete, not a great athlete. And they want to kind of see what that maybe looks like as he continues to develop. I think there's just a level there of like, okay, yeah, this is a very sound prospect that's very well rounded. But again, from an upside standpoint, it's like, again, all these rankings they project for the draft at this point, there isn't really one thing you can point to with Rex Waterman or with Waterman specifically, and say, hey, this guy can potentially be in the league years. And I'm not going to say that he can't, but it's like this is a guy that's going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds. That's the top 100, 150 or so. Those are like typically the four-star range. And people like it's tough to see that right now, but that's not to say he can't have a very productive and very good college career. And so like you compare him again, and Nebraska's got a couple of line committed. You compare him to someone like Leon Noyle, another one that's versatile in Nebraska's class. Noyle has an athletic upside. He's ranked about, a couple hundred spots higher for that reason. I think he's got an athletic upside. I think you look at the build, he's got the skinny ankles that you're looking for, the slimmer lower body that you're looking for. And he's got good bend, has a versatility to play tackle or guard. Again, like I said, has the versatility, has the athletic upside. That's the difference when you're looking at versatile, likely guards at the next level. Is what is the athletic upside? That's usually the biggest separator in rankings. But yeah, there's a big difference between someone like a Rex Waterman who comes into Nebraska with a pretty high floor, despite a low ranking, and someone like Brian Tapu, who Nebraska took last cycle, who has a pretty high ceiling but a pretty low floor because he's technically unpolished, and it's going to be a couple of years before he can even see the field. I wouldn't put Tapu on the field year 1 or year 2 at Nebraska, most likely. Waterman, I think at year 1 at Nebraska, will have a chance to potentially contend for snaps in the guard rotation.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of, and maybe it just boils down to winning.
Mm-hmm.
But we've heard Coach Rule and the staff, we've talked ad nauseum about the recruiting philosophy and how they've recruited and their mindset and their eye for talent and how they haven't taken a back seat to their targets because of their records, right? And, if they win games, like what could potentially happen. I think it's interesting that they still don't really get the benefit of the doubt, even if you just take the guys that went to the portal, like Umame Wellen or James Williams or Dowdell or Coleman or Kalen or Jalen. Some of these guys that we liked, but it's like, Jamari Butler, like they're all going to Power 5 schools, right? They're not. It's so at some point it has to kind of be reconciled in your head that, hey,
they know what they're looking at.
They may know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how many of those there have to be, but I just rattled off like 9 or 10 guys whose destination. Borkature, who we kind of rolled our eyes at, is at A&M, and it's like, clearly Nebraska's got to have an evaluation for what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Right. Went to A&M and also got a pretty nice raise to do so.
Bears at Missouri, right?
Right.
We think,
or that's North Carolina now. North Carolina, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's like, Coleman, for a guy that we thought was an afterthought. Minnesota's pretty excited.
Yeah.
And he missed almost all the spring. They're still excited. So for whatever it's worth, the evaluation process can't be too far off, can it?
Yeah, no, definitely can. And that's why, I do think that correction's, potentially coming down the line. It may just be one of those things where, Nebraska, I think Nebraska still has to kind of prove it on the field. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of these lower ranked Nebraska commits in this class that get a sizable bump up if they continue to improve as seniors.
Tim, did you get a chance to watch Dayton Raiola at all last night in his?
Yeah, watch the first half of that.
Well, what were your thoughts?
I like again. So for him, I wrote it yesterday, put it up this morning. The improvement I'm looking for him and Dylan are weirdly similar, even though they are in different stages of their careers. With Dayton, both of these guys, I want to see more from them being able to use their legs, show more mastery of the offense. I thought we saw a little bit of that from Dayton yesterday, just being able to change things at the line, based on what his eyes are seeing. And again, kind of showing his control of an offense with the kind of weapons he has around him. Like the improvement I saw from him as a runner. Again, we didn't see enough of that as a junior. I think he's got some athleticisms and has a little more juice with his legs. So it was good to see a little bit of that yesterday. Still a little bit of a sprayer with the football. Obviously has the arm strength, but the accuracy is still something that I think is getting dialed in. He's an efficient quarterback. I think we saw that last year. He completed over 60% of his passes. But we want to see a little more accuracy this year. Yesterday, again, it's a tough competition. Milton's a very good team. I don't know how much of that was him trying to keep the ball out of harm's way when he's throwing it up there, or how much of it was just kind of throwing on the run. But I do want to see, I think, as the senior year progresses, a little more consistent accuracy and touch. But overall, I think I like the strides he's made athletically, and I like where his body's at as a senior.
Yeah, it's got really good arm talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was his counterpart. I don't know if I've seen a crazier half in terms of my thought process than watching Baker at Milton. That first half,
Yeah.
I thought he was sensational. He may have been one of the best players on the field.
Yeah.
Early on, right? The touchdown pass, just a little flick of the wrist. He climbed the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
He ran the ball well, and then all of a
Super
sudden,
mobile, yeah.
I don't know, like all of a sudden the wheels fell off of that thing, and Buford defensively started to get a bead. They couldn't protect him without any sort of a run game. I thought Baker was an interesting prospect at quarterback too.
Yeah, I thought he had a good offseason on the 7-on-7 circuit, so I was really encouraged to see some of that from the first half, and then I checked out for the second half.
It was not good.
Yeah, and so when I checked back in, I kind of saw some of that, and I was like, yeah, I was pretty surprised. But Buford's a tough defense. They've got a couple, obviously P4 guys always, but a couple of elite guys up in their front, in their secondary as well. And Milton, is a pretty talented team, but I think they could use a little more kind of run support to help Baker out. But yeah, like I thought that was really fascinating that the first half, second half. He's a junior. Like this, there's a big opportunity, and for a lot of juniors this year, I think there's still a big question on who the top 27 quarterbacks are. I think a lot of guys are in the conversation, Trey Taylor included, but I think this is a big opportunity for separation. Baker's one of those guys that I'm going to be watching closely to see just how much of a riser he can be this fall.
So, Tim, when you're looking at high school quarterback prospects, especially, because this is kind of what I thought when I was watching Baker from Milton last night, is it seems like sometimes, especially when it seemed like Buford maybe had a little bit more talent defensively and kind of overwhelmed him at a certain point. Like, how do you evaluate when it seems like a quarterback is sort of doing everything he can to keep his team alive and it having to do a lot, and then at some point the dam kind of breaks? Either he gets hit too many times, the line can't hold up, whatever it is, and the numbers start to fall off. Like, how hard is that when you're evaluating quarterbacks or that maybe aren't in as advantageous of positions? I think this is the argument people use against Jet Tamala a lot is, well, he's never had to be in one of those positions. Like, how do you do that when you're looking at numbers versus tape and talent around him versus kind of who he's playing? Because that's what it felt like for Baker last night. It just seemed like he got smacked a few times, and it looked like at a certain point the dam just kind of broke.
Yeah, I think there was some emotional stuff there too, just because the way that first half went, he kept getting his helmet knocked off. He kept getting in their face. Like, there is just a certain point where you get to where, like, yeah, you get frustrated, you start forcing throws, you're off your time. Like I just think mentally it just got ahead of him. I think it depends on the type of evaluator you are. Like I have conversations with all these different type of evaluators at On3 and other places, and for some I know I trust that they're watching the games and they can see because if you watched yesterday's game, again I went back and watched that second half, but if you went back and watch, um, if you go and watch the games you can tell, when a quarterback, is like, okay, there's a lot on him and it clearly just breaks down
Mhm.
around him. And it's like, hey, you have to give him some grace there. I think Baker give him a little grace. Obviously, you want to see as his junior year progresses, maybe a little more maturity. Maybe, from an emotional standpoint, he's able to keep those things in check where he isn't forcing throws or he isn't getting ahead of himself because of the situation around him. Ideally, you want a quarterback that isn't affected by things breaking down around him or having to put the team on his back. But that's not realistic. Even the best quarterbacks, at times have to lean on other people. So I think it just depends on how much you're watching the games, how well you know the prospect. Like for example, again, this is different for me with Jet, for example, going into his senior year. I think there are going to be opportunities because there are, kind of a step back in the talent around him where he is going to have to put the team on his back. Is he going to be able to do it? I trust him just because I've been around him enough that he's going to be able to step up in those situations. But evaluators are going to be looking at that closely this fall. I think the team he's committed to, Alabama, that coaching staff's going to be looking closely to see what he does this fall. Again, like you can see it sometimes. Keelan Russell down at Duncanville, always surrounded by elite talent. Had Caden Durham, had DeCorian Moore, the top running back and the top wide receiver, and has had elite talent around him. But there were moments in his junior and senior year where you started to see him elevate the team and put the team on his back. And it was clearly like he was the engine that makes this thing go. I don't think there's any, even though he has been surrounded by talent, I think last year you can very much make the argument in games that Jet was the engine that made Miller South go. I think this year, even more so, there's going to be moments where he's going to have to be that engine. You want to see more of that from him. But I think it is just how much you trust the quarterback in front of you, how much you trust your evaluation. I always think back to, for me personally, I watched all of DJ Lagway's career. I've known him since he was an eighth grader. As a senior, Willis ran up against DeSoto, a powerhouse program down in Texas. And they held their own and really gave them a fight for the first two quarters, but things fell apart. If you watch that game, if you know DJ Lagway, the prospect, it changed nothing about what any one of us thought about DJ Lagway. It just ultimately was they ran into DeSoto, and it's DJ Lagway, the five-star quarterback, kind of putting this team on his back and taking them further than they've ever been. And they ultimately ran into better competition. It's not a diss on DJ that they struggled in that second half or that the final score ended up being what it was. But if you watch that game, DJ was the only reason Willis was at that game and in that game for as long as they were.